Governments around the world gained new technology to stop the spread of COVID, but they're now using COVID tech for different purposes. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. During the pandemic, governments around the world used new technologies to track COVID and stop the spread. Like Animal Crossing, New Horizons. Because who has time to leave their house when they got a whole island to run? But I'm talking about downloadable apps and surveillance tools that track everything from locations to personal health data. From the beginning, people were worried about the death of privacy and unrestrained government powers after the pandemic ends. For years, we've been warned that governments are laying the groundwork for abusive surveillance in the name of public health and public security. At this point, the only thing they don't try justifying surveillance with is public restrooms, which I'd actually be okay with, so we can find and shame everyone who trashes them. Have some decency, people. Governments have tried to allay these fears by promising that the tech would only be used to counter COVID. And that's like a dog promising to eat just one piece of kibble and leave the rest. I don't think they have that much self-control. In fact, governments and law enforcement have been seizing on COVID-19 tech to expand surveillance. The biggest perpetrator of this is China, which is about as surprising as learning that Tony Stark is Iron Man. If you're shocked, you're just not paying attention. For years, China has been using draconian COVID technology for social and political control. For example, Chinese authorities have been using COVID tracking apps to thwart protesters, even if they aren't infected. It's an electronic handcuff that's still restricting people's movements, as opposed to the electronic handcuffs used by kinky robots. China scrapped its national COVID tracking app as it relaxed zero COVID rules after widespread protests. That wasn't in response to the protests, though. It was in response to a massive COVID surge that was happening anyway. And they just didn't want that data out there. In the meantime, though, China still has dozens of local tracking apps enforcing restrictions according to government discretion. You mean to tell me the dog didn't eat just one piece of kibble like they promised? What's next? You're going to tell me Tony Stark is Iron Man? However, China isn't the only country to exploit COVID for authoritarian control. Iran has used COVID as an excuse to monitor people's locations and much more. Early in the pandemic, Iran's Ministry of Health sent out messages telling people to install and use an app called AC-19 to determine if they've been infected with the coronavirus, which I'm sure didn't make anyone at all nervous. It'd be like a witch asking if some German kids lost in the woods can inspect the back of her oven. She's not going to do anything sinister. It's all in the name of public dining. AC-19 sends location data to government servers, but according to an Iranian security researcher, it goes beyond just finding where in the country people are located. It uses an Android library that is typically used by fitness apps to track movement. The app was built by a company that earlier created two knockoff Telegram apps for the Iranian government. Those apps had rumored ties to Iranian intelligence, and Telegram reported that they could be monitoring users' communications, so AC-19 was suspicious from the start. I'm starting to think that giving authoritarian governments tracking software is like giving a grizzly bear a machete, as if they needed any more help being terrifying. But it's not just authoritarian governments that are abusing COVID technology. I'll tell you what democracies are doing after the break. Welcome back. Authoritarian governments like China and Iran are using COVID technology to monitor and suppress their people. But democratic countries are also using COVID tech in authoritarian ways. Let's start off with the least controversial one. Israel. Do you hear that? That's the sound of our monetization being taken away. Israel put their security agency, the Shin Bet, in charge of the country's COVID surveillance system. They put a security agency in charge of tracking people for COVID. Not, say, a health agency. Don't worry, they definitely won't use the tools for anything else, right? Well, according to AP News in 2021, Shin Bet used COVID tracking tools to send threatening messages to Israel's Arab citizens and residents whom the agency suspected of participating in violent clashes with police. They used a health app to send political messages. That'd be like if your Fitbit showed your heart rate, then said, "Do you know a baby's heart rate starts at 5 weeks? Abortion is murder, Kara." The most notable case took place after the Al-Aqsa clashes in 2021. Some of these messages were even sent to people who simply lived or worked in the area, or who were merely passing by. The messages ran, "You have been spotted as having participated in acts of violence in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. We will hold you accountable." There's that bear again. Israel's High Court of Justice has since limited Shin Bet's coronavirus surveillance to those who won't cooperate. Oh, only those that won't cooperate. That should totally make Israel's Arabs less angry, right? Right? Another country that has been caught using COVID tech for things not related to COVID is Australia. Its spy agencies were caught collecting COVID-19 app data early in the pandemic. And it's usually easy to spot an Australian spy since wallabies in trench coats aren't exactly inconspicuous. The police have also co-opted COVID-19 apps to fight crime. One famous case involved the murder of motorcycle gang boss Nick Martin. Local law enforcement pursued his murderer by accessing check-in data from the contact tracing apps of almost 2,500 fans who attended a December 2020 drag race. Police accessed the data despite Western Australia Premier Mark McGowan's promise that the data would only be accessible to contact tracing personnel. Wait, isn't this basically the plot at the end of The Dark Knight for how he found the Joker? And wasn't it specifically mentioned that it was too much power for anyone to have, so Batman destroyed the equipment at the end? The murder was eventually solved using entirely traditional policing tactics, including footprint matching, cell phone tracking, and ultimately a confession. So accessing COVID data didn't even accomplish much. But what it did accomplish was to show how privacy isn't a high priority in Australia. Privacy is as big a priority for Australia as showering is for Pigpen. While some countries at least outwardly vow not to use COVID tech for other purposes, such as criminal investigations, others, like Singapore and India, embrace it. Last year, Singapore passed legislation to allow the government to use COVID-19 tracing data in certain criminal investigations. This was done after authorities had already used COVID tracing data in a murder case, despite earlier promises that COVID apps would only be used for contact tracing. I'm starting to think the only person who can actually be trusted with COVID tracing data is Batman. The measure allows access to contact tracing data under 7 categories of serious crime, including murder, rape, and drug trafficking. Meanwhile, India has used facial recognition software to enforce COVID policy, such as not wearing masks properly and minor crimes such as violating traffic laws. Indian law enforcement sees this as completely necessary. According to one police commissioner, if we need to control crime, we need to have surveillance. Yes, you absolutely need to invade millions of people's privacy to stop the unspeakable crime of not wearing a mask properly, which is something even Batman does. This mask is covering everything except what it's supposed to. And technically, India was using regular technology to enforce COVID policy, not using COVID technology for other purposes. But the situation is no less creepy. And as far as using COVID data for things not related to COVID is concerned, the U.S. is no exception. Documents obtained from the immigrants' rights group Just Futures Law under the Freedom of Information Act showed that federal officials contemplated how to share data that went far beyond COVID-19. The possibilities included integrating identifiable patient data, such as mental health, substance use, and behavioral health information from group homes, shelters, jails, detox facilities, and schools. Those discussions didn't lead to any actual surveillance, as far as we know. The CDC denies using any of that kind of individual information in their current platform. It was just talk. Terrifying talk. Now you may be thinking, hey Chris, what's the big deal? They're just trying to use data to do more good. If you've got nothing to hide, then you don't need to worry. Well, keep in mind that democracies, which are supposed to represent the people, have been known to expose extremely detailed private information to the public, and have left people exposed to data breaches. So to help stop the spread of COVID, they helped spread your social security and credit card numbers. Way to go. They're also not above violating the rule of law and human rights. Some, like Australia, went so far as to install surveillance gadgets in people's homes in the name of safety. Should have known that wallaby in a trench coat was up to no good. Don't you love it when democracies start acting just like authoritarian states? Exchanging freedom and privacy for safety just empowers governments to exert even more power. And the promises of safety are never quite fulfilled. And once governments get that power, they're not going to give it up. No matter how much they promised, they just wanted one piece of kibble. So what do you think about governments using COVID tech? Leave your comments below. And if you like this show, remember that we rely mainly on direct support from viewers like you. All it takes is as little as $1 per episode over on our crowdfunding website, Patreon. Visit patreon.com/AmericaUncovered for more. Click the link below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.